welcome to the next episode of Across the Gun Counter. I'm your co-host, Joe Riva, joined by my co-host, Tyler Weaver over here.
What's up, guys?
Alrighty, and today we're going to be talking about the SKS. Before we get into it, what's been new in the shop lately, Tyler? What came in lately for you?
Oh man, one of the things I was actually working on this morning is one of those Fight Light belt-fed AR uppers. I'm cutting that down, and god damn are they hard. Just trying to part the barrel off in my lathe, just about burned up one of my high-speed tool bits, so I ended up having to switch to carbide just to get the damn thing cut in half. So it's almost like they're case hardened.
Damn. So that's just basically a belt-fed AR upper, right?
Yup, yeah, a lot of proprietary stuff on it though, so you can't just take that barrel and throw it on a normal AR upper.
Oh, really? So,
And I believe even with the lower, you have to have a special magazine release or something of that nature. I don't have the lower in shop because he's going to be throwing this upper on an SBR, so
okay.
he has all that with him.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
only got the upper for shortening the barrel up on it.
Nice. That's pretty
So
cool, though. Not often you get to see a belt-fed
yeah,
AR.
yeah, definitely the first one in my shop. So what have you guys had come in?
Phew.
Anything good lately?
I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to think of some cool guns. We had weirdly enough, we've had a couple PTR rifles come in lately. We had a PTR 9R come in the other week. One of
Oh
those,
yeah,
yeah, those 9mm MP5 rifles. Pretty sweet. It's funny because you see that long 16-inch barrel on it, and you just look at it,
yeah,
and
they look a little goofy, but
they look a little goofy. But I sit there and look at them, man. That's right for an SBR. Like all you need to
yeah.
do is chop that down and put a tri-lug on there, and or you're good to go. Or even just do the barrel swap, and it's
Mm,
all made in the U.S., so you don't have to worry about 922R compliancy or any of that nonsense. So
yup.
yeah, we had that
So
come in.
alrighty, man.
Yeah. So alrighty, the SKS today. Why are we talking about the SKS though, Tyler?
Oh, I mean, the SKS is a great rifle. I mean, from the ground up, really, it's basically a scaled down version of the M1 Garand, if you could consider it from a strictly military perspective. You know, that coming straight out of World War II. It was what, designed in 1945,
Yeah,
I
the
believe?
SKS was originally designed
Yeah.
in 1945 during the end of World War II. There's some debate whether prototypes saw combat in World War II. I don't
hmm
believe they did, and I think it's a far stretch that they would have. It just doesn't make
Yeah,
sense to me.
I don't believe so either. But I mean, just imagine this from, okay, not looking at the internal mechanics or anything like that, but I mean, you have a smaller, more manageable M1 Garand, and we saw how well the M1 Garand worked.
8 rounds, 30-06, semi-automatic. Squad infantry weapon. Every single person can have it, even though it was a big, a full-size rifle cartridge. Everyone could handle
Mhm.
it very well. So with the SKS, same kind of doctrine was in mind. They wanted to have a semi-automatic for everyone. Um,
Yeah, and you
y-
got a decently long barrel on it, more magazine.
yep, you have the bayonet right there. You have 10 rounds of 7.62 39. I mean, it's funny because I think when we think about it, you say scaled down, the first rifle that came to mind was the SVT-40, but not everyone knows the SVT-40
Yeah,
like
true,
everyone knows
true.
the M1 Garand. And that's something to be said. Yeah, the SVT-40 is getting more known, and I've seen a lot more people talking about it over the years. But yeah, it's a lot of people consider that like the Soviet Garand, though. The SVT-40 gets overlooked by the SKS, I think, quite often. I think because there's just so many more SKSs out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a fascinating rifle from a historical standpoint, from a military standpoint. Everything about it, all the variations. I think almost every Soviet country produced them under the Iron Curtain. Poland had their variation. Romania, China. China was probably one of the biggest producers of the SKS that comes to
Yep,
mind. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, hell, for the blog post I wrote a while back. I mean, what were the three examples we had? All Chinese.
Yeah, pretty much. And
Uh,
where can people find that blog post?
over at acrosstheguncounter.com. Little
There we
shout out
go.
there. I like that. Yeah. So that's the other reason why we're doing the SKS too. Is we both have a huge passion for the SKS. It's a very fun rifle. It's a very, like I said, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but it's a very interesting rifle. Being produced across so many countries, and like we were talking about the Chinese one in particular, and we had three examples in front of us, which was really cool because we had three examples of three SKSs, same country of origin, all completely different. They all
Oh,
had.
like noticeably different.
Yeah, and you see that in the pictures. There was two photos up on the website. I'm gonna try and maybe make a link, maybe make a link post or something, so I can put some more pictures up there so people can see what we're talking about. But the three we had an original, like an early style. Mine is actually one of the Type 56s that was one of the first 2 years production, which or I believe it was first 2 years. It was called the ghost, a ghost gun style, where they had basically no arsenal marking and just a serial number. And those were basically the first ones set up on Russian tooling by the Russians for the Chinese. And so they were basically just the Chinese were making them, oversawn by the Russians. So they had the best quality you could at the time.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, where everyone thinks that Chinese stuff it's cheap or isn't. No, a lot of the Chinese
No.
Block guns, no, they are some of the
Yeah,
finest
no,
out
not
there.
when it was not when it was based on Soviet design.
And it was set up directly by the Soviets. And
Yes.
as much as I hate the ideology of the communists, I love their weapons. They are
I mean,
some of
it,
the.
it, it was great for gun
Oh, it
manufacturing.
was absolutely fantastic for firearm manufacturing. And when it comes to the Chinese ones too, the Chinese really, they took to the adoption of the SKS so much that they were using it up until the late 70s, early 80s, up into the Sino-Vietnamese War, which is another war that people,
Yep.
most here in the United States, don't even know that Vietnam and China went to war after we did in the 70s.
Hmm.
And yeah, so what was funny about that was China was still using the SKS up until that point, and they kind of got, depending on who you talk to, they got their asses handed to them by the Vietnamese. Kind of like, yeah, I'm not gonna keep going down that route,
Yeah.
but so and one of the reasons that they lost in combat was they were following the old Soviet style doctrine. The Chinese military wasn't really modernized at that time, and when I say they were following the old Russian style doctrine, I'm talking about the average soldier was equipped with the SKS, whereas the squad commander or support soldiers or shock troops might have the AKs. And the reason being was the AK was meant more to supplement the Soviet submachine guns like the PPSHs, the PPS 43s, things of that nature in the Soviet military initially. So when it came to Soviet military, when they had seen that the AK was a superior firearm to the SKS, they basically said, well, instead of just keep producing SKSs as a frontline rifle, we're just going to replace every troop with the AK, and it worked very successfully for the Russians in the Cold War. Chinese, when they went to war and they had SKSs, and then their support guys or only their leaders had the automatic weapons, didn't work out so hot for them when the enemy all had automatic weapons.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, it's true. It's a great rifle, but I mean, in the Cold War, it got outclassed pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you don't see um, as big of a following with SKSs as you do the AK rifle.
It's very true. The AK has so many variations, and the SKS has a lot too. And I think the SKS goes overlooked more time and time. Like I said, case in point, I know I keep going back to the Chinese SKSs. We had three different ones. We had a very early style with the blade bayonet. We had
Yep.
I believe, what was the second one we had? Because that was yours or your wife's? I forget.
My wife's. Yeah,
Oh,
she has a early, well, not as early as yours, but still earlier Vietnam bringback. So that was a vet bringback that has a blade bayonet on it.
okay. Yeah, that was, and you saw the shade of the stock on too. If you look at the pictures of the two, you can definitely just tell the shades and the different styles of the stocks.
Oh yeah, it's like a very yellow amber color.
Versus mine, which was more dark brown. But and then yours, which was the most recent import, which is kind of funny enough.
Yeah, unfortunately it does have import markings, but I was looking for a essentially beat to shit SKS. You know, there's something about looking at very pretty guns all day. I like a nice change of pace. Sometimes I just like a gun that looks like it's been through the ringer.
Well, yeah, I mean it has character. Now
It does, absolutely.
it really has character, and where it came from too, no less. You said this batch was from Albania, I believe.
Yes, yeah. So supposedly this one was imported from Albania, though it is not an Albanian manufactured SKS.
So
Because
even
those
show,
are worth big bucks.
yeah, that's the thing where we're talking about all the variations. The SKS has, your most common, typically you'll see on the market are going to be your Chinese, your Yugoslavian, your Russian. Your
Hmm.
Russian do bring a premium, but your Russian are pretty common actually. I'd say a little
Yeah,
more
I mean,
common
we
than
have to
people
look at
think.
the numbers. I
Yeah,
mean, Russia was the main manufacturer of the SKS in China. So I mean, they were fucking cranking them out.
oh, absolutely. For the first few years that they were making them, and you know, like I was at the show last weekend, for instance, and I was looking all over for SKSs. Now, this show in particular was all more military surplus, more old guns and things of that nature. You know, the good stuff, if you will. And you know, I was going there. And
Yep, yep.
so I'm looking around, and you know, me and my buddy were trying to get just average prices on everything. He pulls me aside, he goes, "Yo, look, Joe." I go, "What?" They had a Yugo M59 66 up there for almost $1,000. We both kind of scoffed, and
Jesus.
yeah, that's all right. I understand that SKSs are not being imported like they were by the crate load. Something people need to keep in mind was SKSs used to be imported so cheap. They were $180 in the Shotgun News back in the day.
Yeah.
Every importer and their grandmother had them for $150, $180.
And let's be honest, most of the people that bought them just because it was a cheap rifle.
Exactly. They bought them because it was cheap. And how much did the ammo used to go for? 7.6239.
Oh, God. I don't even remember.
I
Dirt
mean,
cheap.
oh yeah, they were practically giving it away.
Hmm. So now, like, since you mentioned the Yugo SKS, let's touch on that because
Yeah.
I really like what, the former Yugoslavia was doing with a lot of the, what do you want to call them, like Soviet com block rifles
Mm-hmm.
or just firearms in general. So basically, Yugoslavia would take a design and make all sorts of modifications, which kind of sucks from an aftermarket standpoint. You can't
Mm-hmm.
get any parts other than Yugoslavian parts to fit it. But I mean, just look at all the little modifications that they made to it. What they end up going with? You have the grenade launching capabilities built right into the rifle.
Yeah,
The
that
flip up sight for that.
yeah, you had the whole grenade launcher, the whole front sight. The stocks were slightly different,
Yep.
but for the most part the
I
same.
think a little bulkier,
I
weren't they?
think they were a little bulkier. I think
You got a
someone
recoil pad with them.
yeah, you had that little recoil pad, and but I think the stocks were interchangeable if I recall correctly. Like the widths and everything, they weren't different like the AKs were. Like the I know because the
They
AK was
might
it.
be.
I'm curious. We're
I
gonna
don't
have
know.
to.
I can't say. I can't say I've ever tried to swap one out.
I'm pretty sure they're interchangeable between the two. But the thing is too, you'd have to look is well, I guess it depends on what two SKSs you're looking at. Because if I
Yeah.
guess the main thing you're gonna have to worry about up front is if the bayonet is gonna be a blade or spike bayonet. But all
Oh yeah,
the
and that.
but I was gonna say all the Yugos are all blade bayonets to my knowledge.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So, but the Yugos, actually had two variations. They had the M59 and they had the M59 66.
And then what's the difference between those two? Do you know?
So yeah, so the difference between the two is the M59 is basically just the direct copy where it doesn't have the grenade launcher front sight and all that stuff on it.
Okay.
It's just a plain SKS basically, and then the 66, which is the more common of the two, has that grenade launcher front sight and the grenade launching abilities.
Yeah. So they have that. The flip up night sights. Sorry if you can hear my dog bark in the background. Uh,
I
we
know,
have
it's
two
sorry.
basset hounds that just love to bark at every goddamn thing they see, and
Uh,
we live in the woods, so they see a lot.
that's nice. Ricky's kind of quiet over here today. He's not. I'm sure he'll make an appearance on the show like Duke will at some point.
Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, man. I mean, like the Yugo SKS was one of the first SKSs I ever had experience with. I picked it up at a gun show. I think at the time it was like $300, something like that.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
just shows
and
how much times have changed too.
yeah, seriously. Yeah, took it out, shot it, and I mean, I had an AK before this, and just really impressed with it. Just how well it handled with that cartridge having that much more mass to it compared to an AK. You know, fixed wooden stock, everything's wood, so it's comfortable. I don't know. I fell in love with it.
Yeah, dude. There's just one one of the first times I picked up an SKS. I don't know if I ever told you this. This is really funny. The first time I actually picked up an SKS, as comfortable as they are to shoot, they are short rifles.
Oh yeah,
And
and I'm a short dude, so it fits me.
so it fits you, and it's funny because the first time I ever actually picked one up, I actually went to go kind of shoulder it, and I kind of almost like threw it over my shoulder because it was like, you're like almost expecting that little extra length, and I was like, whoop.
Yep.
Same thing with the VZ58 kind of because the VZ58 has that kind of short stock style as well.
Yeah, they're a little shorter.
Yeah, but that's part of the rifle too. And again, who was the rifle designed for initially? It was designed for the Soviets, and what was the average build of the average Soviet at the time? They
Yeah,
weren't.
not big.
Yeah, they weren't. 6 foot. 6'9" or even 5'11" at that. I believe it
Meh,
was.
communism. What do you want?
Exactly. We give you potatoes and vodka. That's it. And that was kind of how they lived. Well, funny little side note. I believe it was the T-54, T-55 tanks. They actually required the drivers to be under 5'5".
Really?
Like yeah, tank crews, not just the drivers. Like the actual crews had to be under 5'5" to fit in the tank. So I'm
Huh.
questioning where they got this um, surplus of shorter soldiers to work tanks in these rifles. But question for
Yeah,
another day,
yeah.
I guess.
Just lower the age limit.
Just lower the age limit. I mean, yeah, it's only communism, right?
Yeah.
So they don't really care
Anyway,
as it
back
is.
to what we were talking about.
But the SKS, in short, the variations, the Yugoslavians, they're really cool. Like I said, they have two different variations, the M59 and the M59-66. The grenade launcher is the most unique feature giveaway that you'll see from afar, seeing a Yugoslavian versus a Chinese or Russian.
Yeah. Plus, just the color of the wood. A lot of the Yugoslavian import rifles have a very distinct wood to them.
They do. They have
And
like that blondish.
yeah, I'm not exactly sure what type of wood it is though. But I know working with it, it definitely doesn't sand like anything else I'm used to.
No, it's definitely slightly different shades. Even like the Chinese and the Russian ones, the Russians have that. All Russians have that shellac. Like when they have, there's something about
Mm-hmm.
that old wood shellac aesthetic look that you
Yep.
have with the
Yep.
rifles that you don't have with the modern Russian firearms or modern firearms in general. But you can always tell the Soviet versus the Chinese or Soviet versus the
Mm.
Yugoslavian or Albanian and whatnot. I mean, actually, funny a little bit about. I mean, you actually made some shellac recently in your shop, no?
Yeah, I had a customer. He had a Mosin Nagant that he wanted refinished correctly, and by correctly he meant he wanted it done with shellac the way it would have looked coming straight out of the Soviet Union. So I dove down the rabbit hole. Okay, went to Home Depot. Was like, hey, they don't sell shellac. Imagine that.
Huh? They don't sell
So
shellac at Home Depot. Did you try Lowe's?
okay, well, not the kind of shellac that I need.
Ah, God.
So, yep, went down the rabbit hole, and it turns out it's made with this what they call like lax seed that you
Hmm.
have to mix with denatured alcohol to break it down, and that is your actual finish.
Okay.
So, you have to strain it because I guess, oh, in a very uh, broken down way, it's basically bugs eat the sap from the tree and shit it out, and that is what you mix in with your alcohol. I
Ah,
mean that's my understanding of it.
yeah. So
So
it's
who's collecting all this? I don't know, but
some poor Russian sap, if you will.
yeah. So that like I said, that's my understanding of it. But basically, mix it all up, strain it, and brush it on nice and heavy like they used to, and it dries insanely quick. So you really have to work quick, which makes sense why they just kind of slapped it on, and you see it everywhere. So
There's no
metal
rhyme or
parts
reason.
doesn't matter. Like pretty much by the time you brush the stock, like the butt stock, get up to the forehead and go back down, it's already dry.
Okay. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
you were showing me a little bit of it, and it was just
yeah,
globbed over everything,
insanely
which is
fast
cool.
drying, tough to work with. But you know what? It gives you a nice hard finish. I mean, it flakes over the years, but for what the Soviets were going for, it was perfect.
Exactly. The main
And it's not like
reason.
they don't have trees in Russia to collect it from.
No, exactly. Half of Russia is trees. Um, I mean, and if I recall correctly, the reason they coated it in that was to protect it in the winter mainly, or it was better protection against the snow, if I recall correctly, for water protection, right? So
I
the
believe so. It's a very like sealing finish to it. It's
yeah,
not like linseed oil or something like that.
so nothing would actually creep into it in like extreme temperatures and stuff like that, or extreme temperatures, or things
Correct.
of that nature. Cool.
Hey Joey, let's take a pause here. I'm gonna see if I can get Duke to calm down.
Shit. All right, and we're back. All right. So one thing we can't talk about the SKS, Tyler, without talking about the unfortunate side of the SKS, and
Yeah, the dark side.
the dark side.
People modifying them.
Yeah, the Bubba. Bubba and the SKS. Bubba, no. Yeah, it's one of the biggest, I think, unfortunate sides of the SKS is how much people modify the SKS now. And at one point, I could see people arguing for modifying the SKS. I can't really see a point of it nowadays.
No. So let's first start off by admitting that most of the time the firearms that people would modify were cheap firearms that were just generally disregarded.
Yeah, they were
But
military
just like,
surplus guns. They came in by the barrel loads, crate
hmm
loads. They weren't collectible like they are today.
yeah, and just like everything else in history, at one point in time, nobody cares about it. Eventually, it starts getting more appreciated, and then we kind of look down on what people used to do to it.
Exactly, and I mean,
So,
we've seen that in our just the past few years with just surplus and different parts kits too. I mean, we
yeah,
haven't. Unfortunately, we kind of missed all the golden age of imports, if you will. But
yeah, I would say so.
I mean, we even saw just a couple years ago, like with the. I know it's a little off topic, but like the AMD 65 kits, those Hungarian kits, those used to be everywhere for like $400, $500. You can't find them
Yeah,
anywhere
because
now.
nobody wanted them.
Yeah, no one wanted them. Now you can't find them.
Yep.
So, like the SKSs, no one wanted them at one point. Now everyone kind of looks for them. I actually had, weirdly enough, I actually had a woman come in the shop looking for an SKS the other day. I forgot to mention, or maybe I did
I can see
mention.
that. I mean, it
Yeah.
it it honestly is a great woman's rifle.
Oh, it absolutely
Yeah.
is. It was just interesting to just for a military surplus. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear
Yeah.
that. Uh, you know,
But you know what? Now that I think about it, I mean, think about it from a woman's perspective. You got the short length of pull. You have very big uh, features to operate it with. I mean, the bolt. You got this big solid knob. The safety's a giant switch. Throw switch.
you're
I
absolutely
mean,
right.
really, it's great.
Yeah, now that I think about it too, a while ago I went shooting. I brought my one friend too, and she actually tried the SKS and she tried the Mosin, the M44, and she was like, "Ow, no,
Oh,
yeah, we're not
yeah,
shooting
forget
that."
that.
And then, but the SKS she shot all right along with the 22, but she was like, "Yeah, no,
Yep.
you made me shoot that one," and no, still holds it, still holds me, holds it against me to this day. But
Anyway, back on
but
topic.
back on topic with the SKS, yeah. So when you come into the modification part of it, the Bubba people change. They change out the stocks. They put polymer stocks on them. They make them so they take these goofy duckbill style detachable magazines. And I really this is gonna be a rant here, so just bear with me.
Oh, come on, let's have it.
I don't understand the duckbill style magazines. There is nothing you gain with an advantage of one of those SKS duckbill style magazines. There's no advantage you get over traditional AK style detachable magazine or the stripper clips that you can just top off your
Yeah,
SKS
just
with.
run the damn strippers. That's what it's designed for.
Exactly. It ain't a party without strippers, all right? So you need to run your strippers and your SKSs. So let's put it that way. And I just
I love it.
right? I don't I honestly don't understand it. It just takes so much longer. Any mag pouch you have, it's not gonna accept it. It's gonna have this goofy little extension sticking out the side of it. I just
hmm
I don't get it. Like
And
if
they're
you're gonna
susceptible to damage. You have this big flimsy piece of sheet metal.
exactly now
'Cause
you're
that's all it is. It's just bent sheet metal to
yeah
make up that difference.
exactly, and you're giving all this extra room for dirt and debris to get into the rifle. If you're gonna put the duckbill style magazine on it, just here's how you properly modify an SKS to accept a detachable magazine. You take your SKS, you put it in the safe, and you go buy an AK platform. Got that? That's how you do
Okay.
it. All right, rant over. Ooh, that felt better.
Oh yeah. I have
Oh.
to admit though, I've done it.
Ah, damn it, Tyler.
I started off with a Yugo SKS, and I'm like, you know what? Let's see how far we can go with this. Again, back in the day when everybody disregarded them because they weren't Russian or Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, we're going for the Tapco stock. We're going
Oof.
for the duckbill drum magazine.
Ugh.
We got to do it right. And you know what? That freaking thing would run all day long.
Oh. Do you still have
Yup.
this rifle?
Nah, traded
Okay.
it for an Arsenal SLR 107.
Ah, you saw the light. Good, good,
I
good.
saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and now go ahead and look up what the Arsenal 107s are.
Oh yeah, that's a proper platform to run 7.62 39 with detachable magazines on.
Oh yeah, And I SBR'd it.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, that one's sweet. Yeah, I know the
Yep.
exact one you're talking about in your collection.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Yep. So think about that. A Bubba SKS got traded for that.
Hmm. Yeah,
That was back in the heyday of arms list.
well, that shows too with the prices of AKs. And in our time, I remember the first AK I ever got was, and now granted this was in New Jersey, so it was a neutered Wasser 10, and I paid I want to say $500 for it. And this was at this one shop not too far from me in back when I lived in New Jersey. And yeah, $500. Now a Wasser 10 I think is 900 is the MSRP, something like
Oh
that.
yeah, I remember
It,
my buddy got one for like 300 out the door.
Oh yeah, the first time I ever saw one, I was actually out in Carlisle, and there was like a sporting goods store that had it, and that's actually how I also learned about straw sales and stuff of that nature, because I had accidentally
We'll
said
save
some.
that for another
Yeah,
day.
that's a conversation for another day. But the fact of the matter was they were $300, and I was like, dude, that's
Yeah,
awesome, like sweet, and get an AK for $300.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so you see the prices of how everything has changed now. You mean ARs used to be over $1,000 for the standard. Now you can build one for under $400, $500 if
hmm
I mean if you really wait and are patient, you can do it for under $500. You can't do that
yeah,
with an AK nowadays. That's for sure.
yeah. Not at all.
No. So yeah, I mean the SKS in comparison to the AK, you really can't build an SKS. You can't really go get a parts kit and throw together an SKS. So
Nope.
it's the AK is I don't want to say a simpler rifle to produce in production, but I mean, what would you say? What do you think the easier rifle will be to produce for the long run? Because obviously the Soviet military and all that, they went for it with other reasons outside of just the semi-automatic and that capabilities. I have to
Yeah, I
imagine
mean,
production was much easier in the long run on the on the AKs.
yeah. The thing you got to look at too with the SKS. I mean, if we're going with AK, you got to think of the oh, what the Type One? Should we go with the Type One? Because that was stamped,
Hmm.
but it wasn't great. And then they went to milled receivers, which honestly was probably worse than the SKS when you're talking about machining from a raw billet of steel.
Yeah, you'd
You
have
know,
a
you have
lot
a
more.
much bigger piece of steel you have to work with compared to the SKS receiver.
That's
So,
very true.
fast forward to the
The,
stamped sheet metal like the AKM, okay,
hmm
that's going to be extremely cheap to manufacture compared to the SKS. But you have to remember the milled receiver AK was the first to be adopted by the Russian military.
Yeah, the type
I don't think they actually
Type 2s
adopted the
and Type
Type 1, did
3s.
they?
We'd actually have to go back and look that up. I'm actually not 100% sure. I think there was some adoption of it because I remember seeing some. They could have just been early pictures I saw with
Yeah,
Kalashnikov with
I
it.
don't know if it was like fully fielded though. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
I wouldn't say it was
like standard
fielded.
issue.
No, I know the development of the AK was extremely secretive too.
Hmm
So I can't imagine they would let a bunch of faulty ones get out there with and it having tarnished that idea of the Soviet Union coming out with this new superior uh, rifle, if you will.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so from a cost perspective, comparing it to the milled one, it might be pretty close.
Cost be
You
close
know,
with there, but
wood's
once
cheap, but again, it's very susceptible to
wood's cheap.
breaking, cracking. Yeah, wood's cheap. Warping. So you have to finish, you have to maintain. Eh,
No, so
it's tough to say.
it's tough to say, but if it was looking at stamped versus milled, you'd say the stamped would probably be the easier of the two to build.
Oh yeah, if you're looking at
Obviously.
like the AKM versus the SKS,
Hmm.
AKM all day.
Okay. Now, what about like the parts too, the gas system, stuff like that? Comparatively, is the production like? Because I believe the one has a two-piece gas system, where the other has a one-piece.
Yeah, so you have to look at it like the SKS. You have two separate uh, pistons. You have
Hmm.
the initial piston that the gas acts on, and then you have a little extension inside the rear sight block, and that's really what kicks that bolt back. So with the AK, the piston's attached to the bolt, so that whole thing's moving as one. Nothing can go wrong with that system while it's in the gun. I mean, granted, you could take it out and bend it, break it, whatever you want to do to it. But while it's in the gun, the piston's attached to the bolt. When that piston moves, the whole bolt's moving. With
Hmm.
the SKS, you have essentially three pieces that have to work together. So
So you have more room for
essentially,
failure.
more room for failure.
Yeah.
So you have that going against it. Um, the other big thing with the SKS is that tapered firing pin. If you look at the nose of the firing pin, it's essentially a cone,
Hmm.
which, if you know anything about friction, once you slam one cone into a hole, well, it has a tendency to bind up.
Hmm.
So sometimes when they would get dirty, you essentially have an open bolt machine gun.
Well, I was gonna say the SKS always had a historical tendency for the slam fire, which for
Yep.
those who don't know is basically what Tyler just described. Was it basically turns into a machine gun? Essentially, it just gets skunked up in the firing pin and it gets up against that cone and it just keeps going
Yep.
until there's nothing
Until
for
that
it to run.
firing pin breaks loose, or yeah, you run out of ammo.
Yeah, so you'll see you've heard if you'll ever see or hear people at the range of a rifle running away, that's what we're basically describing. Is the AK has a tendency to run away and slam fire. It's not a fully,
SKS.
or I'm sorry, the SKS, not the AK. Yeah, the SKS has a tendency to slam fire and run away. Moss 49 is similar to that too, but that's a rifle for another day. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's always been a problem with the SKS. A problem quotation marks. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, if you, it's a very simple thing to remedy. It's just clean out your firing pin. The SKS is a very user friendly rifle, even for an early semi-automatic, or I really wouldn't even call it an early semi-automatic because it was
Nah,
1945.
semi-automatics were pretty prevalent at that time,
Yeah, I'd
but
say that would be the silver age of semi-automatic rifles.
yeah, yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, the silver age. Yeah, but no, it's very very user friendly, very easy to maintain. Something I even touched base on in the article is, hey, is it a useful rifle today? Absolutely. If you train with your rifle, it's an affordable ammunition. Especially if you're shorter build, it's friendly in every state in the country, assuming you're in the
Mm-hmm.
United States. Yeah, there's no reason not to
Yeah,
own
because
one.
it's
I
what, a
think.
10-round magazine,
Yeah,
right?
10 round magazine, fixed
Yeah.
magazine too, so you don't have to
No
worry about
threaded barrel.
no threaded barrel. I think the only states where they're actually illegal, and there's in California, I believe the M5966 is specifically called out by name because of the grenade launcher. Because
Okay. Yep, yep.
gangbangers are running around launching SKS, grenades off of SKSs, and
I was gonna say you
that's
can't even buy those.
yeah, it's just oh my god, we just gotta have a talk. We'll have to have just a talk on California one day and the nonsense that
Yep.
is.
Yep.
But yeah, and I think New Jersey has the law too, where you can own an SKS that has a detachable magazine, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, so just the base format surplus SKS you can own everywhere. So yeah, it's a great secondary rifle. It's a good rifle to learn on until you can afford an AK. Something to
Yeah.
practice on. Ammo's cheap. I love them. I only have one in my collection right now. I really think I'm gonna try and add a Russian one sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially with the way the prices are going, I'd rather get one before they get more expensive.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to go get one, like what's your grail of the SKS? Because I mean, we could talk about the
Oh.
SKS for hours. Let's be honest. And I mean, of the variations, there's some of the more rare ones, like the North Korean, the East German, the Vietnamese, the Albanian.
Albanian. Yep.
Albanian.
An Albanian would be my pick. I mean, got these huge vent holes in the wooden handguard. It just looks like a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's probably out of all the variations of the SKS, it's the most unique looking outside of the
It's
5966.
the ugliest. Just say
Yeah,
that.
it's the ugliest. Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's the ugliest because I think it's cool. I think it's cool,
I mean,
but does
so do
everyone?
I. But yeah, that would be my holy grail.
Yeah,
SKS right there.
that'd be cool. Get an Albanian one. I've seen them floating around. They're the
Mm-hmm.
easiest of the tough ones to get, which is nice. So that's definitely a little bit more obtainable than me trying to find a North Korean one for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
would love to have a North Korean one. Reason
Mm-hmm.
being, just the Korean War is just so fascinating, and it's something that's not really talked about. And although the SKS did not serve in the Korean War, just the
Mm-hmm.
fact that hey, it's North Korea. We don't get anything from there, so there's not a lot. The odds of finding one of those is I'm never gonna find one. So it would just be cool to
Yeah.
have that. That's my Grail one. Hey,
Yup. Yup.
better luck finding an East German, which would be I'll settle for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll settle for an East German SKS one day. So
So, alrighty, man. Anything else you want to add about the SKS?
man, there's really not a whole lot I can say aside from everyone go get yourself an SKS, guys, gals. Doesn't matter. They're affordable right now. You can find a Chinese or Yugoslavian for well under 1,000. If you go to a show, you can find a Russian for under 1,000, most likely. Just avoid. I'd say you're gonna pay premium if you go online. Simple as that. The SKS is a rifle for everyone. Your wife has one. I had a woman come in the other day looking for an SKS, which I mean, hey, Tyler, his and hers SKS. That's like
Absolutely.
yeah,
Me and my wife have them.
yeah. See, there you go, guys, gals. I mean, hey, for guy idea for a first date, go get his and hers SKSs. Just saying. Take a page from Tyler's book. So
Absolutely. Hey, it worked for us.
exactly. So can't complain there. So on that note, guys, hey, until next time, where can they find you at, Tyler?
They can find me at Precision Rifle Works on Instagram, Facebook, and at precisionrifleworks.com.
All right, and you can find me over on Instagram as well at sightpictures762. You can also find our page at Instagram as well at Across the Gun Counter, or follow us at acrosstheguncounter.com. You can find all our content there. We're gonna be posting updates, posting the blog. Check out the blog. We already have an article up there on the SKS. Just a little write up we did. I think you guys will enjoy it if you enjoyed this episode. And hey, until next time, guys, stay safe and don't do anything we wouldn't do.
Take care, guys.